Yes, yes, in the best. What? I don't know why I started the episode like that. It's a weird thing to say. I don't know. Yes, yes, in the best. What? Okay, we're going with that. Oh no, is that phone? You may hear stuff in the background of this episode. I'm not gonna get up and turn that off. I guess I could. Hold on. That wasn't so hard. I should have just done that. I didn't want. That's a real little microcosm of how hard we make this. Like, I don't want to do that. It's literally, I just flicked a switch that was 3 feet away. Not even. Welcome to Synchronicity. Fun intro. Not intro. Fun start to this episode. This is a super cool, intense episode. I don't know. It's not going to be that intense. I'm going to try to make Neville Goddard's The Promise as light as possible, as you can. In case you don't know who Neville Goddard is, you haven't joined my email list. I've given away a treasure trove of stuff, of audio and PDFs there. So go do that, you dingbis. I'm all over the place this morning, but I am going to get to this promise, and it's going to be a good episode. So I've been not debating. I knew there was going to be, I knew there were going to be people who wanted to hear about the promise, but I imagined what happened to Neville Goddard would most likely be the case for what would go on with me talking about the promise. And so here's what's going on. All right. So there's Neville Goddard taught two different things, the law and the promise. And the law is like the operative why and how of why when you imagine things, they actually unfold in this world. It's like he really delved into that for the first like 20, 30 years of his teaching career, just his lecture circuit and stuff. And people love that shit. It's like, I can get whatever I want. It's like, that's amazing. Teach me how to do that. So his crowds were huge. The lecture halls loved him. He got whatever he wanted. He did whatever he wanted. Now, he was always fine financially for a variety of reasons, which are covered. If you want a nice little synopsis of Neville Goddard, go check out Mitch Horowitz's The Miracle Club. And I know Mitch does a lot of other stuff with Neville. So he's a pretty good resource. He's the one who tuned me into Neville Goddard. But basically, Neville Goddard was talking about the law. People were loving the law. They're like, yeah, this shit is the best. Keep talking about this. I want sex. I want power. I want... And they were all using it lovingly, too. He was really good about teaching that. So it wasn't even like they were just like, shitty people doing things with the law, although they could have been. But they were satiating their immediate needs. And that's totally cool. And that's a great way to use the law. But then he started talking about the promise. And the promise, excuse me, the promise is a little bit different. The promise is this idea that you're God, that the culmination of waking up to that reality is in the New Testament is called Jesus Christ. In the Old Testament, it's Moses and culminates with the revelation of God's word being written in stone. And he was a Christian mystic for the most part, but he talked about the law in a lot of different ways until he had a mystical vision on July 20th. I think it was 1959. July 20th is my birthday, so that was a fun little synchronicity. When I read that, I'm like, really? Okay, got it. He had these mystical visions, and they were visions that were literally scripture, involving David and a birth from above. And what sounds like now, knowing more about kind of cross-culturally what happens in kind of an ascension process, there was definitely a Kundalini awakening. He talks about a serpentine, fiery energy moving up him. He talks about finding himself, he woke up and he was entombed in his own skull. And he knew he was like in his own skull and he could not get out. Like it felt like a trap. There's no doors, there's nothing, there's no way out. And he pressed and he felt around and eventually he found kind of like a trap door at the base of what he knew was his own skull, and like had to like totally squeeze himself out of it. There was no one helping him. It was a very laborious process, but he eventually got through this hole, came out and found himself on the floor. And his brothers were there and they said, oh, Neville had his baby. And he's like, what the fuck? And so then he went over as himself and looked at this baby in swaddling clothes, and it was him. So these are like divine mystical visions. And like most people, if they have this, you probably would write it off as a dream. But he understood and was, well versed in what dreams are and what visions are and the distinction and the metaphorical meaning behind them and what it meant. Anyway, he started having, that's kicked off 2 other dreams for him that essentially were these divine visions of, the last one was him getting like ripped in half or like cut in half with a bolt, and out came like, basically it revealed to him that what happens is we all eventually wake up, not conceptually, not intellectually, not even emotionally, but actually direct experience. We all have this experience of waking up. So Neville would talk about this in very emphatic terms, only relating to biblical scripture. And I don't discount that. That is a very real thing that probably happens. But what I imagine is more likely is everyone has the experience within their own cultural context of this waking up, of this actual living out literal whatever modality you have kind of created for yourself or identify with. Tibetan Buddhism, we hear about the wrathful deities and the peaceful deities, the clear light. In shamanism, we hear about like, this mother ayahuasca from the southern people, South America, and the Father Time, and in Africa we have the Iboga, and these are all just different facets of the Godhead, right? So whatever you identify with, you will actually literally experience, is what he says. Now, from another sense, it's what he's really saying, and I haven't even gotten to the promise yet. He's just saying that this is something that everyone will go through, which is wonderful because it means like everyone's going to go through it, and that's great. It's a really good feeling. So how did he know this? How did he come to these conclusions? How did he have the confidence to start talking about this, even as his crowds got smaller and smaller? So like when he started talking about the promise, people were like, dude, what? And like even me, when I started listening to us, although I will cop to this being the thing that really like hooked me in, he's talking about, and David was Jesus, and Jesus is David, and you will see what's going on with you. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, really, what is this guy talking about? But then you kind of start to understand that he is talking about metaphors that he's experienced literally, personified. And it's like, okay, just because he lived through it personified doesn't invalidate any, it's like weird and kind of like, what the heck? But here's what the promise is. Here's what the real promise is. And for the people who don't give a shit and just want to know about the law, this is not the episode for you. But if you're deep in the waters, if you're really like, if shit has just been like, you've proven this to yourself through good times and bad, and you're like, okay, well, what is going on here? Like, why is this happening? Right? This is the promise. The promise is, let's start at the beginning. Okay, of this narrative of how we are going to view unity conscious fracturing off into multiple different individuated states of consciousness. Gosh, should I roll a joint for this? I feel like I actually probably should. So I might do that during this episode because this is going to buckle up. Okay, so we have unity consciousness, and I've spoken about this briefly. I've spoken about components of this before, but never in one straight line, or as much of a straight line as you're getting from me, which is a curvy ass line, but it's still going to get to the destination. So you have unity consciousness. For all, we're going to just call that God. And if I use the word he, I'm just talking about he in the God consciousness way in terms of how it's written down in scripture. Please do not take he as a gender pronoun. I know that can be difficult to say in this day and age, but it's not. So I've, in the past, like whenever I would hear he, I'd be like, that's fucked up. Like, why are they not acknowledging women? Like, here's the truth, what's going on right now. The divine feminine is fucking surging. Don't worry about women and gender and the feminine asserting itself. Totally happening. There's nothing you can do about it. Just brace for it if you're not ready for it, and don't worry about that. So if I say he, just don't read into that in any way. And if you hear auxiliary noise, it's me doing stuff for a joint. Okay. So there's unity consciousness. And unity consciousness, God in this case, is like, all right, this is the best. I'm omnipotent. I'm omnipresent. I can do whatever I want. Everything is my canvas. Let's call the canvas emptiness. I know that's a weird term for it, but that's what the Buddhists call it. Let's call it the void. Not in terms of emptiness or void, like nothingness, but just like a blank slate. Okay, so let's call it a blank slate. And so God is here, and God's like, yeah, this is cool. I can do whatever I want, but this is also super boring. Like, I'm everything, but I know everything. I feel everything. It's like it's kind of static. It's not dynamic. It's and staticness can lead to stagnantness. And it's like, I want to create some stuff. So he starts creating all this amazing stuff like light and movement and action and all these concepts, and then physical things. He's like, oh, physical things. Let me pin down some aspects of consciousness to physical things. This is cool. Let me create worlds out of this, right? And we hear this in Genesis, right? The mountains, the rivers, the seas, the land, the birds, the beasts, all this stuff. And then he's like, all right, this is cool. I've got this amazing playground, but I know this playground. I created it. It's not the same. It's like, I did it, like, it's like Sim City or like one of those games, like you build your whole town up, and it's like, cool. But after a while, you're like, all right, I need something else to keep me interested in this. Like, I built it, it's great, but I know everything about it. So he's like, okay, let me create these things called humans, right? These beings that are humans, and they're going to be cool. And he makes them, and he's like, oh shit, look at this. And he does what we do when we're kids with like pretend dolls. It's like, all right, look at hey, nice to meet you. Oh, bad guy, good guy. All right, so he's doing all this stuff, but he's like, this also kind of sucks. And it probably is like millions, billions of years of doing this before he's like, oh, this sucks. So I don't want to make it seem like it's like, and I'm saying he, but she, it doesn't matter. That's my point. When God's like, this sucks. Okay. Then he's like, all right, I am going to need to do something drastic to make this actually legit. Like, if I'm going to have to really do this, I'm going to have to do something fucking drastic. Okay. So I'm going to have to die. I'm going to fracture myself off into infinite versions of consciousness, of limited versions of me. And I'm going to go into these humans, and I'm going to live and appropriate all their brains, these amazing brains I made and their minds. And I'm going to go in there. But for this to work, I'm going to have to forget that I'm doing this. But I'm so confident that I can wake myself up in each individuated consciousness. That's kind of the game plan that I know is going to happen. But when I'm there, I'm not going to remember this. So, all right, am I doing this? Am I fucking doing it? Am I taking that tab? Am I drinking that brew? Am I dreaming that dream? All right, here I fucking go. All right, so that's the first part of it. And the story that is outlined here is we find ourselves with consciousness, our earliest memory, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. And we find ourselves trapped, entombed in this body, in this where our heads are, right? People just gloss over this, but think about the part of you that's listening and interpreting what I'm saying, right? It's in your head. Like, feel for it. Feel it. It's not in your feet, not somewhere else. You're your whole body, of course. I'm not denying that, but it's in your head, right? You're up there. What the fuck? That feels weird. It freaked me out when I first started doing this. Like, oh shit, what the fuck? I never really thought about this too much, or I only thought about when I was on like acid or something. But that's where you are. You're entombed in Golgotha, the place of the skull. That's where you are. You find yourself in this predicament right now. And what does it look like when we look out of this? And I mean, I was thinking about this the other day with like smartphones, and like, cause I'm getting into live streaming. I'm getting all my YouTube stuff and Instagram stuff set up. And I'm like, what's cool about these stories and these live streams from like the point of view? It's like you're literally John Malkoviching into people's heads now. And they're giving you their experience of life, and the people who are skilled at being their authentic versions from that POV. Like, that's cool as fuck. And I've been waiting for this, and I've been thinking about this for a long time, years and years. And now it's like, I think the technology physically is caught up to what we're doing. I don't want to get on too much on a tangent of why that's happening. There is reasons for it. But Anyway, you jump into this body, right? What Neville Goddard refers to as annexing a brain. I fucking love that. But by virtue of doing that, you've descended from unity consciousness. You've descended from unconditional love. And imagine the type of love and faith and belief an eternal, omnipotent being would have to have in the process of having total amnesia about what it is, who he, she, God source is, and just totally zero men in blacking yourself out and being like, you know what, these fucking the ability. And this is the free will destiny thing. The destiny, you know what's not up for debate? You will wake up to this fact. You will wake up to this is actually true. This is really what's going on. Whichever way, at any rate. Now, what's totally free will is the way you do that, how long it takes you, how many incarnations you want to go through, how many different versions, how many things you want to feel. And let me try to tell you something else here that you don't lose your identity when you wake up to this. You don't merge into unity conscious and then you don't have that. That is a choice. You make that choice. Everything is a fucking choice, even if it doesn't feel like that. And that's where this weird kind of like schism happens where we feel like choices are being made for us or we're just reacting to external reality. Nope, you're doing it. You're God. You are the person, you are the being that lives inside of you that truthfully is running the whole fucking show. And you can tap into that at any time. So the promise here, we're getting to it. We're slowly unrolling it. So we find ourselves as a unity being, completely all power, all love, all unconditional love, just the best, but confined now in a limited body, in a place where there are rules of what's going on. When I say limited, way less limited than we think. Way less. I'm listening to this David Goggins guy who Duncan put me on to. Holy shit. Go to David Goggins. He's amazing. And I allegedly say, fucked up shit. It's a fucked up life. You got dealt a raw hand. Now, I agree with David Goggins that you can get to a place of fearlessness and just like indestructibility. But I also think that you do control this. He set up an incredibly vicious and like just toughness building plan for himself. But nevertheless, this is true. This is what everyone is doing for themselves. So now when you learn this, you can take control of it and you can start using the law and you can be like, okay, great. So that's conceptually getting it and even practically putting it into place. But when you experience it, when you fully wake up to it, as Neville did with this experience of coming out of his body and witnessing this birth from what he calls above, it's a different thing. So back to the promise. So we have this descending action, and everything that has a duality has the opposite is also true. So to descend implies that one must ascend, right? And so it's this loop of things that happen. So you descend as unity consciousness into your individuated individual state of consciousness. Then we have this function of where you need to ascend to the realization that you are God. And again, I've spoken about some of the barriers and challenges that can happen when you're trying to ascend to the level of God. Is you might be like, nope, what the fuck are you talking about? Shit is inaccurate, not what's going on. And that's crazy. And when you bring this up to people, so I was lucky enough to have like a Jesus Christ experience with no context, right? So 17 years ago, I've spoken about this many times. I took a nominal amount of LSD, 150 mics, nothing crazy, and tripped for 3 months, had all these experiences. And part of that was me for about 3 weeks knowing, I don't even say like thinking, but feeling and knowing that I was Jesus Christ. And like I said, I grew up Reformed Jewish. It's Jewish light. We didn't learn about Jesus at all, right? My idea of Jesus was what you see pictorially depicted, and like I didn't understand anything. So it was weird to have that experience of being like, hey, I'm Jesus Christ. What the fuck is going on? Like, this is weird. But I knew it. Didn't make sense. Didn't know what to do with that shit. Kind of just unpacked it. Said, oh, well, Jesus is a mushroom. Jesus is this. All these different fun ideas that you hear throughout time. Jesus is a mushroom. Jesus is everything. Because Jesus literally is you. He dwells within you. He is you. He is within you because that is you. If you're a woman, it doesn't matter. There's no every single, what Neville Goddard says, what does he say? Every child born of a woman, right? Then that means you are he, because Jesus Christ is not a person. He's not a dude out there being like, hey, like, do what I did. I'm the coolest, man. There's a difference between waking up to your Jesus Christ and being like, hey, I'm Jesus Christ and you're not. When you wake up to, if you're really waking up as Jesus Christ, you go, oh shit, I'm Jesus Christ and everyone is Jesus Christ. Amazing. That's Jesus Christ. That's all it is. It's waking up to the knowingness that you have ascended and will ascend to the level of your Father. That's called in the Bible. Sorry for using biblical terms for people who that rubs the wrong way. Just remember, the Bible is not secular history. It's not history at all. It can be personified in different dimensions of time and space. So that's cool if you want to go there. But they're allegories, they're metaphors, they're psychological states. Every single situation, character is about you. You know who the Buddha is? It's you. When you read about the Buddha and what he did, that's you. He fucking tells you that. He says, I am not a god. Well, he says not a god. He says he's awake. That's what Jesus Christ would say. Now, the difference in the Jesus Christ parable is, as Jesus in the story incarnates on earth, he forgets aspects. Why, God, have thou forsaken me? He fucking forgot even. He's like, why are you doing? He's like, oh, I am you. That's not a person saying to some dick God, being like, hey, let me send my son down to earth and have him get pinned to a fucking cross. Not at all. The cross is the body. It is a choice that we make as unity consciousness to come down. We pin ourselves to the cross of the physical body. Right? This is what's going on. It's not an evil thing. It's not a bad thing. It's actually kind of an incredibly amazing thing. So as you wake up to this truth, this is called part of the promise. The promise is from yourself to yourself, from the big I to the little I, that you will wake up to the truth of this statement in whatever way it needs to make sense. If you want to go the Buddhist, want to use the Dhammapada, you want to go sit under a tree and realize the illusory nature of this world, go for it. It's a dream, right? A lot of people will ask me to interpret their dreams. And if it's obvious, I'll give them some insight if I can, but I don't even this is the dream. You're lucid dreaming right now. Hello? The goal isn't to wake yourself up either and the dream ends like we do when we're sleeping. I mean, at some point we choose to do that when we move on and don't just keep reincarnating because we don't realize this, but this is a fucking dream. And it doesn't mean be reckless. It precisely means do whatever you need to do to realize that this is a lucid dream. Now, there are rules to this dream that we don't encounter in our nighttime dreams, but there are rules to those dreams too. There are things. Someone brought up something really interesting to me, and I can maybe count on my hand how many times we dream, for how often we use them. Why aren't our smartphones in our dreams? The fuck is going on there? Maybe yours are. Maybe that's just someone who grew up without smartphones immediately present, but mine aren't in my dreams really that often at all. Now, I also don't dream that much because I recognize this is the fucking dream. Your imagination is reality. This is the dream. Play around with that. That's the first thing that really popped open everything for me. It loosens the mind. It greases the wheels. And you can look at this is a dream and be like, oh my God, what? None of it's real. What about my kids? What about the people I love? What about my body? What all this is? What are you talking about? You got it. It's still here. You're still here. You still here? Were you listening to this? Then you still have a body. It's amazing. You can wake up to this reality and still experience everything the same. I still like the fucking Miami Dolphins. I will keep bringing this up. I have no intellectual reason to like the Miami Dolphins. It's objectively not even that. Although I love it. Okay. I haven't changed sufficiently that I don't give a shit about football. I like it. I love it. It's amazing. I love music. I love all types of music. It's just shit just gets better, if anything. So you can take the reins. So the promise is that you will eventually have the literal direct experience of waking up to this as a reality. Now, if it doesn't interest you, if it's what the fuck? I don't care. I just want the cars. I want the houses. I want the relationships. Let's say, again, I'm not saying this pejoratively at all. I want the cars. I want the houses. I want the relationships. All fucking great. Amazing. Those things are served up for you to work towards them, achieve them if you're supposed to and want to and feel like you should. That's what they're there for. They're to keep you striving and going, to realize this. Nothing is impossible. And I know that rubs some people the wrong way, because what it does is it forces you to take accountability for your life. And that shit can be really uncomfortable. And if that's uncomfortable for you, then yeah, go pick up this David Goggins audiobook, because this guy will yell at you and make you feel like, you just be like, do it. Just push through your shit. There is no circumstance in life that is actually so bad that you can't actually mentally and psychologically push through it. The Dalai Lama teaches us that. Mandela teaches that. Nelson Mandela, like, everyone teaches us the same thing. And it's true. We are constantly creating our reality. Now, let's get to the implications of the promise. Let's say you find yourself woken up as a God being, a godling, right? You, holy shit, I'm God. I'm responsible for my entire world. What are you going to do with that power? Are you going to flex your ego? Are you going to flex your power? Are you going to stunt on people? Are you going to shit on other people? Are you going to just let your emotions dictate whatever you want, whenever you want, constantly be in a state of reactivity? Lots of people do that. Lots of people wake up to this, how consciousness works, and they do that. That's their decision. That's their path. They'll learn what they're trying to teach themselves from that path. Personally, me, I try to weed that stuff out just because it doesn't seem productive for my life. There are no rules to this in terms of how you do it, though. Don't judge yourself if you've put yourself on a path of challenges and learning. That shit's great too. The people who put themselves through these things often come out with some of the best and most powerful ways of transcending them. So just remember that if you're in a difficult situation, that can be a superpower. And if you're in one of those situations where it's just kind of like base level comfort, stagnation, well, you know what to do. Follow unity consciousness path. Destroy that. Go into something that's unfamiliar. Go into something that you're afraid of. Destroy the identity that was comfortable. Now, if you're not doing that, then just ask yourself why. That's all. Why aren't you doing that? What reasons are you not? And then from there, don't ruminate. Don't speculate. Imagine what you dare to dream and assume you are the person you want to be. That's the whole fucking thing we do with this. And as you do this, what ends up happening, kind of just keep going up this spiral, upwardly, ascending. And then you hit a point and you're like, oh shit, okay, I get this. It's a direct experience of being God and the responsibility that comes with that. And it's not heavy. It's not burdensome. It's whatever, if you imagine it to be like a heavy weight, it's the opposite. It's the most freeing and liberating thing that you could possibly imagine, because you have built up the mental, emotional, spiritual stability to know that, like, you're awesome. You're fucking amazing. You're not only are you awesome, you're fucking God. Holy shit. How fucking cool is that? And you woke up to it here in this life amidst all of this amazing shit that's going on right now. Oh my God. That's like, well done. Bravo. Claps. Put in claps here. Fucking amazing. So that is essentially what the promise is. It's heavy. It's not light. It's heavy in the sense that this is everything. This is the eventual goal that you're hitting. Now here's where I light the joint. This is the goal that you've been aiming towards. As you had amnesia, you drank the juice of forgetfulness. As you do that, you fucking did it, though. You broke out of the prison. And if this makes kind of sense, not all the way sense to you, don't worry about it. It's going to happen either way. That's the promise. And the reason Neville Goddard and I talk about the promise and had the confidence to talk about it is inevitable. There's no skirting this as a metaphysical rule. It may not happen in this life if you don't want it to. I imagine it's happening for quite many people in this lifetime. So it may not. Things die all the time. People die all the time and they come back. And just to be clear, you do reincarnate. Reincarnation is real, but my conception of it at this point, at this juncture where we are in linear time, and time doesn't exist anyway. So just to be clear, like this whole mirage, people think it's a simulation. They think it's a dimensional, whatever it is. It's projected light on a screen that we play out and stretch this infinite moment across this thing like silly putty. And we experience it as time. And it's fucking amazing, but it's not real, which is a liberating thing. Go back, change your past, change your future, do whatever you want. Have it conform to the reality you want. It feels like you're fighting against something at first, maybe. Like, no, this is not how things work. That's just your mind coming in to protect you. That's all. Love it. Love it. Don't run away from it. And, listen, things hurt you sometimes. Things are uncomfortable. But if you recognize the power that comes with being vulnerable enough to be hurt, bravo again. You really feel shit. That means you can fucking alchemize it. And if it's something you don't want to feel and you transcend it, you can teach other people how to do that too. And it's always possible. And so, okay, let's talk about again what's wrapped up in the promise. As you wake up to being an omnipotent being of power you can't even begin to conceive of really at first, what do you do with it? What do you do with it? What do you think I do with it? First, I imagine myself to be exactly who I want to be, doing the things I want to be, knowing that I'm going to get there, having faith, dropping my seeds into the ground. I don't hold on to them tightly. I let the seeds go on the ground just like I would anything else. And then they're there and boom, amazing, they happen. That's the first thing I do. Then I do it for my friends and family because I'm pretty sure I'm confident this is how the world works. Then what do? What do you bless every single aspect of your life. You set the intention and aspiration to make sure that people understand that this is what's going on, not in a weird way, not in a shouting it from the rooftops. I reluctantly am talking about the promise. Granted, I'm talking about it and broadcasting it out over a podcast, and there's a lot of live streaming stuff coming up, but this isn't something that everyone is ready to hear. I recognize that, but it's more people are ready to hear it. And the point is that as you hear it, it resonates as true, even if you're like, this dude is super fucking insane. And that's what Neville Goddard knew. And I think luckily, like, we live in a time now where this isn't even that crazy. It's just like, oh, fuck, I feel that. Yeah, shit. What? Oh, man, really? I'm God? Okay. So that's cool. Just process it at your own rate. There's nothing bad or negative about the promise at all. It may be more than you want to take on at any given point, which is why go focus on the law. Start using this stuff. Believe in it. Build your faith. I've already told you what happens is you stabilize like the external situations, and then you eventually get to the point where you're appropriating states of consciousness. That's fucking, once you start saying I'm fearless, right? iamazon.com, people like that one. Get whatever you need from iamazon.com, and like, it's not that far off from the promise. It's not far off from fully recognizing who you are. Now, you don't have to be weird about it. You don't make every interaction where you're like, hey, you know you're God, man. Do you know you're God? Have you, hey, yeah, I know we're watching football, but did you know you're God? You remind people at the rate you need to. Also, you don't convince anyone of anything. You don't need to. You don't show them proof. You don't need the proof is you. Proof is in the pudding, man. Proof is in the pudding. That's what it is. You are the proof. Lead by example. Bless yourself. Bless everyone around you in your life. This is practical and esoteric stuff, but it's true. It's 100% true. And I'm just trying to think if there's anything else related to the promise that I have forgotten. He talks about, Neville Goddard talks about pruning the vine. This is occurring to me. And this is the mental diet thing. This is what you're feeding yourself. This is the thoughts and emotions you're having. And if they seem wildly out of control as you wake up to this realization that you are in control, just start a pruning, start clipping those hedges, start getting things looking nice. And if you need a boost, I don't want to make it seem like I call this world a dream. I'm not saying that disparagingly. Do something in this world. Clean up your physical space, clean up your body to the degree that it feels naturally to do so. Don't force yourself to do shit. I spoke about this on the last episode, the Q&A thing. Celibacy and abstinence, if you know you're teaching yourself something and you're aware of that, great. Do not force yourself to do stuff. Forced discipline in the negative sense always leads to like a rebound and a snapback. It's like the yo-yo mental diet. You don't want to do that. You don't want to like force yourself to do some cleanse and then just snap back and go back to eating like garbage mentally. That's not what this is about. So do it to the degree you feel naturally. And for me, that always starts with imagining the end state, feeling it, and then it just unfolds. It just happens. And then you start like, oh my God, like I want to exercise, like physically. Oh, I want to clean up my shit. I want to do this. And then you just do it because you've appropriated the state where you have the clarity to do it. Anyway, that's how to use the law to help the promise be more palatable. So what do we do once we have, right, like I said, the knowledge of the promise and that this is an inevitability and that like no matter what, this is going to happen? For me, I like to just like, I'm just ramping it up. I say, bring it on. I want these experiences. I want to be continuously reminded of my power because like it's good. It's good. Once you get it, you can write a really amazing story for yourself. You're the actor, you're the writer, you're the producer, you're the director. Write a fucking amazing story for yourself. Do it imaginally first. People think it's, like I said, it seems too easy. It seems too simple to be true. Start experimenting with it. Be empirical about this. Be a scientist. Don't discount it because it doesn't sound right. That's being a dumbass. All right. You don't hear me say this very often, but if you discount something and don't try it because you think it doesn't sound right, that's dumb. Unless like, someone's like, hey, yeah, you should punch yourself in the face and then you'll be enlightened. Well, if I all of a sudden saw a bunch of blissed out people, levitating, and I asked them, what'd you do? And they're like, yeah, we punched ourselves in the face. I'm punching myself in the face one time. That's all I'm saying. And you can take that metaphorically or not. I'm just saying, like, don't discount stuff based on the way it sounds to you, right? That's what we're all doing in like the political world and this world of duality. And this person said that. Oh, Ellen's hanging out with George. Oh, why don't we just lose our fucking minds over Ellen? Why don't we just lose our fucking minds over what Ellen DeGeneres is doing, hanging out with George Bush? The horror. How dare she? Really? This is just my 2 cents on this. Really? George Bush to you is that big of a specter in your life. He looms over you so much that the fact that someone else who you deem somewhat nice or maybe has some like bad stories about her in Hollywood, people who work from her, is hanging out with George Bush, like some confirmation of some evil Illuminati, like these people are shits. You have friends who do fucked up things, right? Okay? Duh. You've done fucked up things. Okay? Just if you're judging Ellen, if you've gotten to the point where you're judging Dory, you're fucking off kilter. And I'm not judging the people who are judging Ellen. I'm just saying, imagine not judging her. Imagine people who don't really care about this. And like, I doubt anyone listening to this gives a shit or even knows what I'm talking about. Ellen DeGeneres hung out with George W. Bush and people are losing it. I guess that's what the internet tries to convince you. Just level it out. It's all good. The promise, the truth is you're God. Focus on your shit. Stabilize your life. Right? Use your mind. It's the rod. Okay? You can be an animal or you can be a god. Focus on what you want. Your mind is the rod. Here's the truth. When I say animal, I don't mean that pejoratively either. It's not like animal bad on one side, God good. You can jump into consciousness whenever you want. And that's what the next episode is going to be about. It's going from the promise, right? If we accept that we are God, we are unity consciousness, if we're everything, then how do the deities, how does polytheism fit into this? Oh, it fits in quite wonderfully. There may be one true God, and that true God is I am, but these deities also exist. They also have energies associated with them. They are stable imaginal acts. So in the next solo cast, what I'm going to be talking about is something I've been doing. It sounds a little loop. This one's even weirder than the fucking promise because I don't have Neville Goddard to hide behind. Say, well, he came up with it, and I just tested it out, and it works. We're going to be talking about jumping into God and deity energy in the next episode. So stay tuned for that. It's something I've been doing. I don't get too attached to it because if you know your Buddhist samsaric realms, the world of the devas, jealousy exists there, envy, you compete, there's competition. So I like to jump into various God energies and deity energies as they suit me, as they make sense for the situations in my lives, and astrology really helps with that shit because those planets are gods. Anyone who's gotten a reading from me knows that I talk about the deities and the planets actually being real. And they are. They're super fucking real. They're you. You are everything. So you pull it out from outside of you. You fracture it off into beings named gods too. Zeus, Hermes, Mercury, all these things, right? Athena. Jump into Athena. She's the best. I'll be talking about that in another episode. Just get ready for this podcast to get a little more psychedelic-y, because I've now made my mind and my life the testing ground, the alchemist kitchen. And, I test things out. I pressure test them. I vet them before I speak about them. I do not leap and jump to conclusions. And after I test something out, though, I'm going to be talking about it. And jumping into this God energy is a real thing. And it's going to sound weird probably for a little bit until people are like, oh, yeah, this is definitely what people are doing and have been doing. And these archetypes are not outside of us. They don't rule us. We don't have kind of no control over them. What's happening is we're building bridges between our conscious and unconscious minds. As we do that, all of the substance and the truths and the realities of the unconscious, archetypal truths, gods, deities, collective unconscious material, we now have access to it. Holy shit. That's fucking incredible if you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, that's it for this episode. If you like this podcast, rate and review it. Join the email list. Tarot astrology readings, man, just as they come in, you who have done them know what's up. If you're waiting for a free astrology reading, they're coming. They're coming slowly. If you want to hit me up and encourage me to do it, that's okay. It helps me get it back to the queue. Also, if you want to pay like a nominal fee, I'll bump you up the list. And this is not because I'm a capitalist pig, but it's like, listen, I do a lot of shit. I signed up to do an insane amount of astrology readings. I 100% am honoring that commitment, but I'm sure you can recognize if each one takes like 15, 20 minutes, and I have 40 or 50 left, I have to put those into my days and my weeks accordingly. So if you want it sped up, you can join the paying crowd, or you can wait patiently. That's all I'm saying. And you can remind me. I don't get bothered at all. It is very nice to be reminded that you're expecting something and want something. That's great. So that's still going on. Readings at syncpodcast.com/readings. Live streaming. I just got my shit all fucking set up. Super on point. Wait until you see it. I'm really excited about getting all this stuff out there. I can now stream music. It's just, everything is fucking, it's on YouTube. I'm going to start on my YouTube and probably the MindPod Network one. So go find those channels wherever they are. And Instagram, I'm going to be doing that. But I think YouTube is going to be the hard flex for the foreseeable future. Although Instagram's popping too. I'm super active on Instagram these days. So that's it. A guest tomorrow, Jocelyn. I interviewed her, like a month plus ago. And she has patiently waited, probably watched me put out like 1 million podcasts. Does not speak to the quality and caliber of who she is as a person, the delay. It's a fucking amazing podcast. She's an herbalist. You're going to love it. Putting myself on blast for not getting it out earlier. Stay tuned for that. That's it. That's the promise. That's everything. All of the promises. I will see you in one day. Bye-bye. Happy imagining. Coming down, you stabilize it with the 7s from the heaven when the 6s from the head, man.
666.
Devil in the house, Capricorn with your horn. Don't be with any doubt, man. Coming down, you stabilize it with the 7s from the heaven when the 6s from the head, man.
666.
Devil in the house, Capricorn with your horn. Don't be with any doubt, man. Sequence of 12 make you think twice, man. Think about your life and think about it double time. When you go down, we'll break it down. I'll make you see what I'm talking about. Now we go. Start with number 12, dodecahedron.